What's up guys, Carlos Cortesi here, and on this video we'll be covering how to get the most out of your Canon C70. This has been my main commercial rig for over a year, and coming from a 90D DSLR, I couldn't be happier. Making the upgrade to a dedicated cinema camera was worth every penny, and contributed immensely to my business's success. So, without further ado, here are 5 production tips to get the most out of the Canon C70. Number 1. Get the EOS R 0.71x adapter. This thing is awesome. Even though it has a hefty price tag of $600, it's worth every penny, especially if you own EF glass. As you know, the C70 has a native RF lens mount. RF lenses are great, but there are 2 problems. 1, they're expensive, and 2, you'll have a 1.5 crop since the camera is a Super 35 sensor and not full frame. This is especially troublesome if you're filming landscape or real estate with a wide-angle lens, as the 16mm RF will turn into a 24mm, and I'm not aware of any quality 11mm RF glass that will give you 16mm view after the 1.5 crop. So that's where the 0.71 adapter comes in. Not only can you use your old full-frame EF glass, it also gives you a nearly full-frame field of view and provides you an extra stop of light, turning a 24-70 f2.8 into a 2.0 or a 16-35mm f4 into an f2.8. Not to mention the included brackets allow you to mount heavier cinema cameras, and your sensor is always covered from dust when changing lenses. Tip number 2 is to get V90 SD cards. One of the amazing things about the C70 is the variety of video formats you can capture, from fast and efficient 1080p 8-bit H.264 to the beefy 12-bit Cinema Raw Light 4K DCI. But having the camera is not enough. You need appropriate SD cards that can handle these higher frame and data rates. Without getting into charts and calculations, you can simply buy a couple V90 SD cards with a 300 MBS transfer or more. I personally use the Angelbird, SanDisk, and Sony Tough cards, and none of them have given me any issues. With these V90 SD cards, you can handle anything from 30 FPS 4K RAW and 120 FPS 4K 10-bit XAVC all the way down to 24 frames 720 8-bit H.264. Tip number 3 is to know your video format. Like I said, the C70 has dozens of video formats to choose from, which could get a bit confusing. So let's simplify. Here's what I do. My company specializes in video production, so I am either filming scripted commercials, highlight events or tutorials, quick same-day delivery social media files, or long conference speeches and presentations. For high-end scripted commercials, I often use 12-bit RAW ST 4K. This is the highest quality image from the camera, and the ST file is smoother to edit than the LT RAW, while giving me the flexibility to change the picture profile, exposure, tint, and white balance in post, plus insane color flexibility, which is very helpful when matching different scenes. The downside is the massive file sizes and extra strain it will put on your computer when editing compared to the 10-bit or 8-bit formats. However, if your editing system is struggling, you can record proxies on the second card and link them in Premiere for a smoother editing experience. Pro tip, if you just upgraded your C70 firmware to get the 12-bit RAW, by default the system will not let you go under 800 ISO. This can be frustrating as you might find some noise in the shadows that you then need to remove in post. To solve this, go to the second page of the menu, scroll down to ISO/gain extended range and switch it to on. Now you can film in Cinema Raw Light and use ISO under 800. For highlight events and tutorials, which is most of what we do, I use 4K 10-bit XAVC in C-Log 2, which gives me a much lighter file than the 12-bit RAW, but I still get the amazing advantages of log and gray color flexibility. I do avoid the H.265 as I found that it's considerably more difficult to edit and play back, at least on my Windows system. Pro tip, always film in C-Log 2 when using XAVC 10-bit. With some quality LUTs like Carlos Quintero's C70 LUT pack, it's insane the variety of color styles and grading you can achieve with this flat and insanely rich 10-bit image. Now, the C70 has 2 types of 10-bit XAVC, long up and intra frame. Without getting too technical, just know that there's virtually no difference in quality between both formats. The difference is in the editing. Long up will give you lighter files, which are great for multi-day productions. The downside is that it's harder to edit due to its more compressed nature. However, the intra frame results in considerably heavier file sizes, but edits much smoother than the long up due to its less compressed format. I personally use long up if I will be filming tons of unscripted footage, and do interframe or raw if the project consists of scripted and pre-planned shots. Some clients ask for quick, same-day delivery social media files so they can quickly post it in their pages or send them to the local news. This means that I need efficient, lightweight files for fast online transfer color in a format that requires no color grading. So I use either 1080p or 4K 8-bit H.264 in the standard picture profile, as non-video people have issues viewing XAVC files. For long conference speeches or presentations, I do the same thing. These could last anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours, so filming at anything higher than 1080p MP4 8-bit is going to eat up your card in no time, not to mention your client's storage. Besides, most clients just want a quality video and audio capture of their presentation and care little for digital zoom or color grading. Tip number 4 is the custom menu and buttons. One of the advantages of using a cinema camera versus a DSLR or mirrorless is the plethora of analog buttons to operate the camera. The C70 hosts 13 assignable buttons that you can designate to different camera functions based on what you need. Everyone is different, but here's the layout I use on my commercial video projects. Button number 1, white balance. 2, false color. 3, focus peaking. 4, focus guide. 5, display. 6, markers. 7, ISO/gain. 8, magnification. 9 is face detection and tracking. 10 is false color index. 11 is volume up. 12 is volume down. And 13 is audio status. Again, this is my preference, but it might be a good guide for you to set up your own layout. Tip number 5 is to use dual recording. Dual SD recording is an amazing feature in the C70. As I mentioned earlier, you can ease your workflow when recording RAW by sub-recording a 1080p XAVC proxy and linking them later in post. But that's not the only advantage. Many times I am asked to film long events and my client's marketing team wants to have the source files for the content. So, rather than sending all the files to the cloud or downloading them to the hard drive on site, you can easily buy a V30 SD card and record an 8-bit 4K or 1080p version of your footage and just hand them the card at the end of the shoot. This way, your clients won't be calling you about how they can't read the XAVC files, and you still get to have your 10-bit.xavc files for your main edit on the other card slot. Pro tip, the C70 doesn't allow you to record 2 different picture profiles simultaneously when sub-recording. So, if you are recording 10-bit XAVC files on the main card and 8-bit sub 1080p on the sub card, do not use C-Log2 or C-Log3 color profiles. Remember that log files are meant for 10-bit and above, and anything under that will give you unrecoverable colors that not even LUTS can rescue. Never use log with 8-bit video. In this exception case where I do need to give the client a card, I use a standard color profile with the 10-bit image, so that way the 8-bit file will also have the baked-in colors as well. Finally, tip number 6 is to use an external monitor. This was a game changer in the way I do commercial videos. External monitors allow you to more clearly see what's in your frame, what's not in your frame, adjust for exposure, and also allows the clients to see what you're doing, which they love. Not to mention, it's a big change going from the C70's 3.5-inch screen to a 7 or 9-inch screen display. I personally use the OC T7 4K monitor, which looks amazing and won't break the bank, and I power it with the Sony MP batteries. When filming a log, make sure to activate the LUT view on the monitor so you and your clients can see the color image when recording. However, on playback, the monitor will play the log image and you will have to look at the camera screen for the LUT image. That's it, guys. 6 tips on how to get the most out of your Canon C70. If you learned something, make sure to give us a thumbs up, and if you want to see more awesome videography content, make sure to subscribe. Peace.